Welcome back to Neo Disney Fighting Evolution, the sequel to the likewise named Disney Fighting Evolution. I'm AJ, and this video will cover the second half of the incidents that occurred in the Disney alignment in 2018. The reason why I held off this video from not being released right after the first battle video was that truthfully, I have no idea how to plan out the second half of the year of this storyline. So in the meantime, I made a couple of other videos, some video essays, but now I think I have a good roadmap of how this year ended for Mickey and the others. So the question is, where are we? The summer for the Disney alignment was quiet. No follow-up attacks from Oz, Pluto didn't return from the grave again, it was just quiet. But this was a good enough time for everyone to train for a potential attack in the future and shed some light on some of the soldiers in the Disney United Army outside of the Sovereigns. First was Grimhilda and Maleficent's children, Seto and Maul respectively. They took up their mother's mantle of being commanding officers for the army, telling both of their subordinates to deploy a small number of soldiers in future battles. That would trickle down into the Delivery 10 team that once served Neo Disney. This was Ed's delivery group, originally working for Jetix in the mid-2000s. But after Jetix closure, they were still kept around for unknown reasons. Eventually, they began working for Neo Disney in 2014 and used their artificial astral soul data to create clones of themselves, which would later be altered into becoming alternate versions of Marvel's Big Hero 6 team. Combined, they would be known as the Delivery 10 group, 5 members of Ed's team and 5 for Hero. Baymax was not a part of this team because Hero stood by the belief that he was a pacifist. And also, it would look bad if the big fat marketable plushie being shown to rip the limbs off of any of his opponents. Regardless, Seto and Maul relied on them the most for recon and scouting assignments. They had a good bridge of communication and trust, unlike the Disney Sovereigns. After their first battle in May, Miss Lilith was still ticked off about the conversation she had with Evanora, proving her point she was blindly taking orders from Mickey. At first, she thought that by beating Theodora in the fight, that would change her mind. But just from how Mickey acted in the private meetings the Sovereigns always held, it was clear that she was starting to lose her agency. She started to make gentle suggestions to Mickey that as the astral co-owner of the company, maybe she should lead some battles at times, instead of Mickey dictating who should do what. But Mickey kept saying that in order to fully eradicate the parasite Pluto, he needs to be solely in charge. Eventually, these suggestions erupted into demands, saying that none of this would have happened if Mickey wasn't obsessed with greed, if he took care of his family and actually watched over his astral soul employees, instead of leaving them to die once they were no longer profitable. Mickey would argue back, saying that he had no control on the past and that he's doing what he believes is the right thing and that she should shut her mouth and know her place. The fighting would strain their partnership for the rest of the summer, neither co-owner talking directly to one another, which made the Disney alignment vulnerable to any oncoming attacks without a definitive core. Now, speaking of lesser-known allies of the alignment, there was my reflection, also named AJ. He did have some involvement in the Disney Civil War, as he helped accidentally expose Neo Disney to the world, but other than that, he mostly dealt with his life without any direct involvement in the rest of the war or the now ongoing crisis. Especially since he and Ed's crew had a bad history where he accidentally killed them in a blind rage at the age of 5. Despite being revived, the two still held a grudge with one another, but his most closest connection to the alignment would be his astral parents. Now this would be a great opportunity to plug Fox Kids Special, but I'm not going to do that. because I feel like many of those moments in those videos are kind of outdated and drastically need a major refurbishment. So one day I would love to remaster the storyline and make it more condensed. So subscribe to the channel whenever those remasters come out. Like I said, his parents worked close with the alignment, due in part to Miss Lilith. And towards the beginning of his college years, AJ was willing to help out the Disney alignment when he wasn't busy. However, with the appearance of the Alia family together, this would stir one big conflict. Now, the following story arc does not happen in Fox Kids Special as it is right now, but it will be included in the future remasters. The basic rundown was when the entertainment rights for Sky High were made in 2005, Mach Cop posed once more as Will for marketing and promotional material. But now, he was placed alongside the alum of the closed school, including Layla, the real Will's childhood friend. Things were starting to move smoothly, but in the following year, Layla tried to attack Mach Cop, suspecting something was off with her friend. But after beating her in a fight, he revealed the truth of accidentally killing the original Will in '97 and stealing his identity. Layla did not disclose this information to anyone, and once the entertainment rights imploded, Disney prioritized High School Musical over it. But all this time, the original Will Stronghold remained in the afterlife since the 90s, not wanting to be seen by everyone now that his life was ruined and time now told a different story. But seeing the Alia family together in an alignment that was on the verge of collapse, Will stopped denying the fact that his life as a superhero was robbed from him by an alien and confronted his thief. Without hesitation, Will revived himself back to Earth, and he approached AJ specifically. He wanted to get revenge on the life he had lost, and AJ would get his ass kicked hard. But he would thankfully get some help with Seto and Maul by his side. Even though they outnumbered him, Will's strength was enough to constantly beat the three in any confrontation. But all of these fights would end in a standstill, as his main target to kill was Mach Cop. But enough about what the kids were doing, let's switch back to the adults. In the middle of October, the delivery team was assigned on a scouting mission, each being divided into 3 small groups. For one of these groups, upon inspecting the roads of the resort, they were pulled into the trees and woodland area by the last thing on anyone's radar. Hiro and Ed immediately lost contact from this group, and the other members in the army rushed to investigate, alongside Miss Lilith. But by the time they arrived, they saw the bodies of the group mutilated and dead. The only bit of evidence they had was a blood trail, and Lilithmon was not going to make that trail run cold. And the trail led to the staggering body of a half-transformed Pluto, who had not only been revived so soon, but half of her body was already in her monster form. Since the battle in May, Miss Lilith always wanted to fight the parasite, that as a co-owner, she had an equal say on how to end this conflict. But Mickey kept pushing for her to stay in her lane when fighting Oz, because if Pluto absorbed and copied any digital monster powers, she would be unstoppable. While she knew and understands the risk of failing, Pluto's actions against the misfortunate soldiers was something that she could not ignore. In a calm and collected manner, Miss Lilith attacked the parasite, shooting and badly damaging her, ending with a slice against the parasite in 2. By the time Mickey and the others arrived, all he saw was a tired Miss Lilith perched up against the bottom half of the parasite. She said she did his job for him, just to rub it in his face. Back at base, the deceased delivery team members were either revived or repaired from the story generator. Miss Lilith did recover quickly, but Mickey only berated her for disobeying his orders. She countered by saying she brought back the lower half of the parasite that they could provide proper studies of how Pluto worked. The top half was nowhere to be found in the area, and Pluto presumably crawled back to safety. The body would take some time to analyze, so in the meantime, let's swing over to Oz. The sisters were trying to figure out what they should do now. Their flying baboons could only do so much, and the company had no further plans to continue their adaptation of the Oz entertainment rights. But Evanora realized, instead of looking to the future, she should instead look to the past. 1988's Return to Oz is a trippy, nightmare-inducing film that loosely expands on the 1939 adaptation from the Warner alignment. But with the aesthetics and creature designs, Evanora plucked out some notes from this film and reutilized her current magic to lean more towards Return's vision of Oz. The sisters agreed their next best opportunity to strike would be during the Halloween season, as the Disney alignment was going to put on their first Halloween party after the start of the crisis. Considering how in the Civil War there were no clashes during the holidays, the sovereigns assumed that respect would remain with the new threats. But they were unfortunately wrong when Oz showed up to unveil their next wave of minions, flying baboons mixed with the Wheelers. This new breed, known as the Flying Wheelers, were able to traverse quickly throughout land and air, attacking all parks in the resort. And not just that, but Pluto crawled her way back to the surface, now in her full monster form. But with the two co-owners at each other's necks, there was barely any communication to fighting Oz alongside of the parasite. It was a full-on scramble, and it also didn't help that Will made his return fighting Seto and Maul once again. Standing at the top of the castle, Miss Lilith frantically made a game plan on how to resolve this issue. But with a deep sigh, she let herself go and decided to lock in. She quickly and swiftly sliced through many of the flying wheelers, giving each squad in all of the resorts a game plan on how to take out the flying baboons and flying wheelers. And to make this a bigger spectacle, she switched to her Angelomon form to let Oz know that they were dealing with the White Angel. She efficiently pierced Theodora's hands to her body, making her completely immobilized from using any of her fire magic. But instead of finishing the witch then and there, she told Theodora to go home, to live and fight another day, as she drew her attention to Pluto, and more importantly, to help Mickey. While this fight was for the most part a repeat of their bout in December, Mickey was not using his full power, concerned that he would destroy the resort in the process. But here, Mickey would get help from Miss Lilith, as they would double-team Pluto, and with her keeping her distance from any parasite infestation, she charged up her Celestial Arrow, while Mickey used Blizzaga for his Keyblade, freezing the parasite in place, and ultimately being destroyed once more. The Disney parks were once again saved, and this was enough to remedy the relationship between the co-owners. Oh, and as for Will, he turned tail once Mach-Cop stepped in, fearing that he wasn't strong enough to kill his doppelganger. After the incident, Mickey apologized to Miss Lilith, saying that as long as she kept her distance in future battles, she could help out with the Pluto stuff. And for Oz, Mickey promised to help out in the end as well. By this point, the results came in for researching the leftover parts of the monster form earlier that month. The analysis of the cells and dead tissue confirmed that they originated from a multitude of several astral Disney employees specifically those that were at Toontown during the infestation. The results allowed for a plausible theory for why Pluto kept coming back, and so quickly. Because she had infected everyone in Toontown through her influence, she not only copied all of their DNA and molecular matter, but that included their souls. Therefore, every time Pluto died, she would use the afterlife privileges that those in heaven have, such as minis, to come right back to Earth without facing any repercussions. Mickey was determined that the next time he fought Pluto, she was going to be fully eradicated to stop this endless back and forth of her coming back, all the while defaming his former employees. A ticking clock was made for when Pluto would revive herself and end this conflict for good, while making sure no intense conflicts would occur in the Disney alignment that Pluto can absorb and emulate while serving her time in Hell's Prison. But outside of that, Mickey would not care how long it would take for that day to avenge his wife, family, and his company. And that is the second half of the 2018 arc in Neo Disney Fighting Evolution. I know that many of these plot points kinda seem repetitive of the first battle in the last video, but I needed some time to fill out for the rest of the year. Like I said, 2019 is where all of the crazy stuff happens and where the storyline concludes. So hopefully those videos won't take a lot of time to plan out, revise, and make videos for, as I am trying to get this storyline done by the end of the year. So there's a lot going on what I want to do, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it, and don't forget to subscribe for whenever the next 2 parts come out. Until then, I'm AJ, and I'll see you all in the next one.